that's what many of the leading AI developers are doing. For example, one of the moats of the big tech developers, OpenAI or Google, is that they are able to gather a lot of human preference data because they can afford to hire or they can just make users do it. It scales across different modalities. Like right now on the text modality, I think there's more than enough data for models to train and learn from. But if you look at like image generation, video generation, or in the future for the models where the robots use to learn about the real world, there isn't sufficient data yet. Like data is like the fossil fuel for AI, and we need to find a way to get more of this data across different modalities. So that's where I think a lot of the usage for Dojo would come from. It will be beyond the text modality. It's built as, I would say, a DeFi super app, or basically we want it to be a place where as Bittensor DeFi evolves, it will still be the go-to place for people to do what they can think is possible with Bittensor DeFi.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we are joined by CK, co-founder of Tensorplex Labs. To explore their mission to decentralize AI, we dive into Bittensor's dynamic DAO launch, Backprop Finance's community-driven DeFi features, and Tensorplex's open-sourced Subtensor client, Cami. CK discusses Dojo's role in utilizing human feedback for reinforcement learning, Layer Zero's impact on Bittensor, and the influence of tokenomics in markets. CK shares metrics for success, investment frameworks, and advice for navigating the dynamic decentralized AI and DeFi landscape. Now, back to CK with the 42nd Ventura Labs podcast.
Okay, CK, round two. How you doing today, man?
Very well. Great to be back.
Okay, so you are the co-founder of Tensorplex Labs, and your mission, if my memory serves me correct, is to accelerate the decentralization of AI. So how has that mission evolved or shaped or played out since we last spoke?
Yeah, so I guess last time when we speak, dTAO wasn't live yet, was it?
No, we spoke, I think, a month before the launch,
Ah,
around
I
then.
see. So I think we got a lot of reassurance, seeing how the Bittensor team they did the detail upgrade like flawlessly. So the conviction, it's stronger than ever with detail market cap at 700 mil, and yeah, we launched Backprop, which I think is quite tied to our original mission, which is to use our crypto know-how. For me, my experience, having been trading crypto before starting Tensorplex, to help accelerate things, and that's why we built Backprop, and I'd like to cover that more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you think the launch of dTAO went? You mentioned it went flawlessly. Was it up to all your
Yeah.
expectations, or did anything surprise you of it?
Well, I thought people like I saw it coming that people would be quite degenerate and will be very eager to power into detail. But I think the prices and the volatility went quite a bit wilder than I would have expected. I guess even the smartest PhDs at OTF couldn't have seen that coming. So I guess that's a surprise. And of course, with us being so committed to the ecosystem, I had my worries. Oh, what if that some bugs or something unexpected pop up, because you can't fully simulate battle test everything, because when there's money involved, then you can't fully simulate it on testnet. So I would say overall, very glad how well things went, and also we managed to launch Backprop quite quickly. I think within like 1-2 days ish of the detail upgrade. So we got quite decent usage right now, and we're very happy.
Yes, Backprop was, I believe, the second place where you could trade dTAO. The first was Tau Stats, obviously,
Of course,
but
yeah.
Backprop was
Mod as a king. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the volatility in the beginning. We saw prices or the sum of prices for subnets at
Yeah.
up to 3.94 and then as low as 1.08. Do you think we test either of those again?
Well, I have seen like wild times in crypto. Like I've went through 2020 March COVID, so I would say never. Things could get wild. I think um there I think we're still very early, basically. I honestly didn't see Tau hash coming. I always knew that Bittensor it is at its core an incentive mechanism, right, to allocate resources, basically. With UMA consensus, which makes it particularly useful for building AI related applications, or you can say marketplaces. But I didn't see Tau hash coming, and they ended up being now the second highest valued subnet. So I would just say never. You never know when the masses power in, or you see the Tesla subnets being discussed in some very public places, and then prices go wild again because people just want exposure and they have no idea what's happening. So yeah, I'll just say never.
That's a good philosophy to have in crypto.
Yeah.
And you guys, Tensorplex has Subnet 52, Dojo, and
Yep.
Backprop. Last time we
Yep.
spoke, we covered Dojo pretty extensively. And
Yep.
as you said, dTAO wasn't live. And you guys launched Backprop 2 days, 1 day after dTAO launched. So can you just explain exactly what Backprop Finance is, why you guys made it, what you want to do there, and how it fits into Bittensor ecosystem?
Yep. So it's built as, I would say, a DeFi super app, or basically we want it to be a place where, as Bittensor DeFi evolves, it will still be, the go-to place for people to, do what they can think is possible with Bittensor DeFi. Now I think we're still very early. The layer zero announcement was likely 2, 3 days ago. So right now, I think all people can do with size is to trade detail. So we enable that, and it's built to be, I would say, by traders for traders, with some of the features that experienced DeFi traders would want, such as leaderboard or copy trading. So, that's where we are right now, but, we are working on some additional features that would make the life of traders, especially larger size traders, easier. So I would say right now we're in very early phase of Backprop, when, what you can do is to see what are all the subnets available and trade, and, again, look at the analytics and see what other wallets are doing.
And you guys are very responsive to feedback from the community. I've seen Mark Jeffries be like, I want bubble charts, and then boom,
Yeah.
2 days later, bubble
Yeah.
charts were there. So
Yeah, he
in
loves
your
those.
opinion, what are the standout features that differentiate Backprop from all the other options that have sprung up in the community now?
Well, I would say, you know, copy trading and leaderboard are the highlights, because, basically you can easily see who are the best performing traders, what's their strategy. You can learn from them, and you can also sort it to see, oh, what are the different validators doing regarding the detail, which I think, could give you some alpha as well. But I think nowadays, especially with AI accelerating everything, AI being able to code for you, there isn't any perpetual modes, but we try to be very responsive to users' feedback. When people comment on Twitter or on Discord telling us, what they want, or what are the bugs to fix, we just try our best to be very fast, so our users can expect the good features to come very quickly. I would say that's the biggest moat. But I think I'm clearly biased, but I would say Backprop is very elegant. I think it just looks good and very smooth as a platform.
So you believe the speed of features the speed at which you can add new features is the only moat left in technology.
I think largely yes. Of course, having distribution channel, having the user's memory impression is very important. But I think nowadays it's hard to imagine any feature being the most if you have a lot of proprietary data and whatnot. Like for example, if you build YouTube, then yeah, you have all the content library. But I think overall in software, uh, I would just say speed of execution is the most because I don't think even if not now in a few months in a year when AI agents can code entire apps for you, then there aren't any feature modes left.
And there's been some back and forth between some of your competitors amongst themselves in terms of the traffic they get. Oh, I get this much, I get this much. Are there any
Yeah.
metrics you guys use to judge your adoption and place in the
Yeah,
ecosystem?
we basically track the daily, monthly active users and the volume stats. So the stats have been steadily growing. I think every month, like there are thousands of people using Backprop. I think I'm seeing a growing trend. So we've been enjoying riding the Tau trend.
And you mentioned volume. You measure the volume of, I assume, tau or alpha tokens traded through your site directly?
Yep, we do. So a few days ago, we tweeted that we've hit our first 10 million day, which is very encouraging. So yeah, I am looking forward to the first 50 mil, 100 mil day. I think it will happen when more innovation comes.
And then you have experience in crypto funds before and Goldman Sachs. 10 million
Yeah.
volume, put that into perspective for me. How does that stack up to other DeFi protocols or traditional markets?
Well, 10 million, it depends. The day when we hit 10 million, I think by our measurements, overall there are like 40, 50 mil volume traded in detail. I think for a new ecosystem in crypto, I would say basically a new chain, right? With the ecosystem being 3 months old, it's very impressive. Like breaking 8 figures is very impressive. If you look at traditional markets that trades trillions a day, then of course it's a very small number. But to put things into perspective, given right now you can't even trade dTAO using an EVM wallet yet, and with I think the mind share of Bittensor being quite high, but the mind share of dTAO compared to the rest of crypto still being quite limited, with a lot of institutional wallets not even supporting dTAO trading yet. I think hitting this number is very impressive. It's basically mostly just individual whales trading dTAO, because for funds that have to use multi-sig, have to use apps like Fireblocks, they can't even trade dTAO yet. So hitting the mid 8 fix, I think it's quite a big accomplishment within 3 months ish.
And being you have experience with crypto funds and hedge funds of the sort, what do you think about dTAO investing? How do you think people should be approaching buying subnets and looking at those type of metrics? How should they
Right.
evaluate these things? Because it is a fresh market, like you said.
Yep. So, as a trading platform provider, I won't very specifically talk about individual subnets, but I would share my framework. So, first of all, in general, my framework look at altcoins is I want to know what is the mechanism of the project itself? How does it make money? Does it make money? And how much of the revenue comes from using tokens to subsidize usage? for example, in the most egregious cases, the revenue of some other crypto projects basically come from users being more than 100% reimbursed the fees they pay by token emissions, and in those cases, those projects usually their revenue metrics doesn't mean much, right? While there's some projects like Hyperliquid, for example, that make very simply make real trading fees from users, and users seem to enjoy using the platform. Then you want to distinguish that, and also you want to think about whether those projects have long-term path to success, because it's easy to get initial attention when people launch crypto projects, especially when there are some expectations of quick profits for users. But then you need to think about what's the long-term competitive advantage or long-term moats of those projects. Are they solving real problems? And how do they stand out? So these are some frameworks. And then also it's important to think about what's the incentive of the team, because in crypto you want to be mindful that sometimes the team's incentive is to quickly grow the value of the project's token to get a quick exit through OTC, and you want to avoid it. So that's a general crypto trading framework, and I think a lot of these also apply to dTAO as well, which is you want to think about what is the actual business of this subnet? Can this subnets last even if the value of the dTAO drops quite a bit, right? And you want to look at what has the team been doing? Has the team publicly communicate how would they approach this dTAO? Are they going to use their revenue to either currently or in the future give it back to find a way to distribute or reward the holders of dTAO, etc. So yeah, I think basically I would say it's very important for people to do their own homework and not just follow the price, because the worst thing you can do is when the price is going up and then you quickly pile into a subnet, and then when things turn, you don't even know how to react because you didn't do your homework. So you don't even know oh, does the price dropping 20% means I should get out instantly, or should I buy more? So yeah, I think that's the way high level framework of how to look at tokens and specifically dTAO.
One point that stuck out to me there was if token emissions, like chain emissions, are greater than the revenue produced.
Yeah.
I think that fact might be true. Well, it's true for sure for the majority of subnets, if not all of subnets currently. So how
And
do
most of
you?
altcoins as well.
Yeah. So how do you cope with that currently? This is something you believe will be different in the future,
Yeah.
or it's different on Bittensor, or what?
So I think the way I look at it is that Bittensor's tokenomics design is very good in the sense that subnets, they can have a very high fully diluted value now, but because it's basically a fair launched token, like every detail is a fair launch token. So for teams to want to generate big value, big venture like outcome for themselves, they need to constantly find a way to deliver value. So they can't play short term games, which is good about Bittensor. I think currently the way I look at it is that each subnet is an incentive marketplace that aims to bootstrap some kind of network effect. So it's very normal that initially in the first few months of launch, the emissions will significantly outweigh revenue, because you first need to build the supply side of the digital commodities before you have enough supply where you can go for the customers. But I think after 6 months or 12 months, the team needs to have some, let's say, early promising signs that there's demand for what the miners are producing, or at least they need to have a plan, or they need to be able to justify where they are and what they're aiming 6 or 12 months from now. Because I would say there are definitely incentives for some teams that want to play shorter term games to just pump their token maybe as a meme subnet or whatnot, and just try to milk some from market in the short term. But I think to be sustainable subnets, ultimately you need to prove that the what the miners produce is of high quality and of high demand in the market.
You said that the emissions essentially allowed the subnet to bootstrap, creating the network effects among their miners to produce whatever they produce. And would it be fair then, if that's the supply side, would it be fair to classify the subnet price as the demand for what they are aiming to produce?
I would say from a more academic way of speaking it, yes, right? It's what the market expect it to be, the value in the future, right? Because if you buy it at the current price, you expect to be able to sell at a higher price. But usually markets are not that rational, especially when liquidity is low. So I won't say we can analyze it from such an academic way. But I do think the design of Bittensor's dTAO tokenomics mean that if 1-2 years from now something that's still highly valued, it shows they're doing something very right, because it is able to continuously get demand to keep the price high despite the emissions of dTAO hitting the market.
Another common thread that I hear a lot recently is for the sum of prices, that when TAO price goes up, sum of prices will drop, and when TAO price goes down, sum of prices will rise. What's your take on the sum of prices?
Well, I would say TAO price, okay, from a more academic perspective, if TAO price goes high, I think you could also say it's an expectation of the subnet economy to grow. So basically, if people increasingly expect there to be a lot of high value subnets to be created soon, then they probably will buy TAO. And because TAO price is should be quite tied to the overall value of all subnets. So I guess that explains why sometimes if TAO price goes up, you can see subnet prices denominated in TAO goes down, while maybe the dollar price remains rather unchanged. I think this makes sense. But I think overall, this type of phenomenon, it can change. Right? It depends on what the biggest holders approach to trading detail is, and this can change on and off. For example, back then we have seen times when Ethereum price goes up and the altcoin price goes even higher, and there are times when Ethereum is sucking liquidity from all altcoins. So I think it's a similar thing as what we're seeing at Bittensor. So yeah, basically I don't want to over analyze or justify this phenomenon, because it could change just based on what the biggest holders are thinking.
Yeah, like you said, the markets can act irrationally at times, or from what we presume to be irrational.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on market cap versus fully diluted market cap? Because a lot of crypto people like to focus just on the market cap. They say that's all that matters. What is your opinion?
In the short term, usually market cap matters more than FDV. But in the longer term, especially given dTAO's model, the FDV would it's like gravity. It ultimately weighs on the market because of the way dTAO is designed. When all the emissions, which are essentially token unlocks, are very transparent, right? So you can't just hold it back. In traditional crypto, if we look at altcoins, projects can have very irrational FDVs because a lot of supply is essentially locked. Or the big holders, they can communicate and have their own deals between themselves to keep the price high. But in Bittensor, it doesn't really work that way. But I would say short term, especially given the fact that the yield of holding dTAO, staking and validators is quite high as well. So FDV itself is not, like when you look at FDV, you need to be aware that you're not really buying dTAO at that FDV you buy now, because you get a lot back from the staking yield.
And then if you want, we can pull up Backprop and we can actually like look around and see what all these things look like for the people that may or may not be familiar with Backprop. They can see from the founder himself the best way
that sounds good.
To use the product and what the
Let me figure out how do I
get himself created
share the screen
and how he interacts with his own creation.
Okay, here I am. Can you see all right?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
We're looking at Backprop.
Yes, you're looking at Backprop. So you can see, all the Bittensor subnets ranked by their market cap, or you can change to, rank it by whatever you like, right? Like 24-hour performance, 7-day performance, etc. Or by, the types of subnets, such as, compute subnets, or if you just want to invest in the subnets by the chat at Microcosmos, then you can do that as well. And then and you can toggle between USD and TAO. If you're denominated in TAO, then sure, you can do that as well. And then there are the bubbles, which is a very visual way for you to see what are the biggest subnets that have done especially well. For example, this one is
that's probably
a
a pre-launch subnet.
Yeah, it's a pre-launch subnet. Probably should look at it that way. But yeah, you can toggle based on the biggest changes in market cap or price or FDV. I think, and you can change by interval as well. So I think the 7-day one is probably better for you to think about to sort them based on their slightly longer term performance. And then there's the terminal page, which this is our dTAO, the Dojo dTAO, and you can basically choose which subnets do you want to trade, and then you can check out the charts, the recent transactions, the top holders, what they have been doing recently, etc. And then let's see, and then there is a dashboard where you can see what specific addresses have been doing, including your own, right? What's your net worth? What's your realized P&L? And then there's a leaderboard. You can see who are the best performing traders, what they've been doing recently, or you can track validators, subnet owners, and miners. And then you can create your own watch list. Basically figure out who are the chats that you want to copy trade, for example. And then you can go to analytics and see how the overall Bittensor ecosystem has been doing. So this is a very quick overview of the current version of Backprop. But of course, more features will be coming, and you're always welcome to share your thoughts on X. I keep calling it Twitter anyway, or on our Discord.
Yeah, they are very responsive to feedback. If you could go back to the homepage for a second, a point you brushed over real quick was how to view the price of subnets. You can view it in TAO or USD. There is a lot of back and forth with that. What is your take on? Do you just price everything in TAO or do you price everything in USD? Because there's people that are on both sides of that fence.
Right. Honestly, I think for I think a lot of users, right, what they want is to grow the TAO stack. So I think tracking in TAO makes more sense. But for general crypto users that just want to understand the economy more, if they're not actively trading or they're still in the research mode, then I think the USD toggle makes more sense. So it does depend on what you're aiming for.
And then something we said earlier, or I said earlier, was it was a pre-start subnet. And I believe you guys have those marked as inactive. So if you could just explain what those are, and it's typically the newer
Yeah,
subnets, since we're at
yeah.
such a high number of subnets now.
So basically, while I think previously launching Subnet has quite a bit higher requirements, right? Like for example, you need to pay a pretty hefty registration fee. Nowadays, the barrier to launching subnets is way lower, and what happens is that sometimes I hope it will get less and less often as people are more educated. But people can just register subnets, and when the market cap is very low, just pump the price of the subnets using their own funds, and then very quickly they can pump the market cap to an extremely high number when the liquidity was essentially like one dTAO paired with one TAO, and then to get attention and hope that there'll be people aping into those subnets. So that's why we label them to make sure that we can help protect the users, so make them a bit more informed.
That's a point I want to emphasize is those inactive subnets only have one alpha in their liquidity pool. That's why you're seeing the price at 100 TAO or 900 TAO or something crazy. That's what happens there. And then I guess for more practical, how users can use this site, how can they trade dTAO or subnet tokens directly on the site? And I think you
Yeah.
guys have alpha to alpha swaps now as well, right?
Yep. So the users can go to something they want to trade, just press trade with dTAO terminal, and then they can choose. Like here, people can connect their own wallet and then swap TAO to the subnet dTAO, and they can, for example, go from subnet 64 to subnet 1, for example, and then they can just swap here.
And this has built-in slippage protection, I assume, that will just
Yeah, you
auto
can
adjust.
choose your own slippage tolerance here. Yeah.
And then this is also going to look like the typical crypto DeFi transactions where it's like you press trade, the wallet's going to pop up and say sign this transaction.
Yep, exactly. And
And then,
we don't charge any fees, so 0% fees for transactions here.
and then I assume then if you don't charge any fees, you just everything's route through your validator, correct?
It's the users can choose, but by
Oh wow.
default it goes to our validator. But yeah, we hope to give people option, So when you, for example, swap from TAO to other subnets, like you can choose here, but by default it goes to a validator, and our validator is a very performant, and stable validator. So yeah, I think it's a very good option for users.
And then okay, you're trading detail. How do you view
Yeah,
your balance? How do you view your performance of how well you've been doing?
yeah. So you can copy your wallet address and then just go to the dashboard. Well, actually, in the dashboard by default you see your own wallet. So I used the new Chrome profile for this to not dox my wallet, so you can see the net worth is zero and P&L is zero. But if you connect to your wallet that's been trading detail, then you'll be able to see what are your positions, what are your previous transactions, and then maybe there are subnets you hope you bought earlier, there are subnets you hope you didn't sell, etc. But you can see everything here.
And then a useful feature that Backprop has that I'm unaware if any other site has is the leaderboard feature, where you can track the
Yep,
top wallets and it shows who's made the most profits. So
yep,
yeah.
yeah. It's good for copy trading. Yeah.
And then you have the distinction there of if they're a trader, if they're a miner, if they're a validator as well, right?
Yeah. And you can you can see if you want to track people's unrealized or realized P&L as well. So up to you to choose what do you care more about. Or you can look at how people trade specific subnets.
Okay. Well, I think this has been pretty comprehensive of almost a tutorial of sorts for onboarding people towards Backprop. So thank you for that, CK. And I'm sure people will find that very valuable.
Very welcome.
And then also the price delay. You guys have one of the fastest delays from on-chain price to price on your charts. What is that delay exactly currently?
Oh, I absolutely don't know. But I mean, honestly, a lot of the hardcore engineering stuff, our head of Backprop manages that. So, I can ask, him
Yeah,
first.
no, that's why you have a
And
team.
I think he is, yeah, and he is, I think Tan Yu on Twitter. I think both myself and the Backprop X account, we retweeted him quite a bit. So you can ask him.
Okay. I'll put his Twitter in the description of this video or something. We'll make sure people
Yeah,
can find
he's a
him.
chat.
Yeah. So something else that is kind of related to Backprop, I assume, is Cami. You guys
Right.
launched Cami or open sourced Cami. I don't know the best way to qualify that, but Cami is a
Yeah.
Subtensor client. Can you explain what that is, what it does, why
Yeah.
people should care about it?
Yeah. So basically, it is, I would say, an alternative for subnet builders to directly interact and communicate with the Bittensor chain. We built it because we want stability or performance optimized way to interact with the Bittensor chain as we are building Dojo, and as we as we build it, we realize this is something that other subnet builders also face. They want something with better error logging, for example. So we decided to open source it, and basically with the goal of making it easier, smoother for for current or future subnet builders to build on Bittensor, because building Bittensor comes with, I would say, its unique challenges, and I think overall, uh, I would say a challenge for us to grow the Bittensor ecosystem is that for people to be a good subnet builder, not only they need to understand AI and crypto economics well, but they also need to understand you know the unique characteristics of the Bittensor chain. And I think open sourcing Kami is one of the ways to make it easier for subnet builders to onboard and to build more stable, higher quality subnets.
Uh, Cami, I guess the best way to summarize what it is it's a more traditional looking API to interact with Subtensor. Would that be a correct
Uh,
summarization?
I would say it's an alternative to Subtensor for for subnet builders to interact with the Bittensor chain.
Do they have to run their own nodes, or will it plug into nodes you guys are running, or Finny, or someone else's?
I think they don't necessarily need to use our nodes, but that's something for the engineers to answer. So please don't take me at my word.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's why Tensorplex is an organization and not just one man.
yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, CK, that's a step to open source and help onboard other developers. Where do you see Tensorplex itself heading in the next few years? And just what is your, I don't want to say roadmap, but what does the future hold for Tensorplex?
So we, um, despite the fact that we build DeFi products, but ultimately we are a decentralized AI lab, and we're aiming for building things that are novel, that solve real problems. I think what we have learned the last year is that our belief in the importance of reinforcement learning has been pretty much validated because and that's why we built Tensorplex Dojo, which is subnet for collecting high quality RHF data. So what we're doing now, I would say at least in the midterm, is after we launch the human feedback loop, which basically allows us to recursively collect human feedback data to improve the quality of code. What we want to do is to onboard with both Web 2 and Web 3 AI companies for our for our subnet to be more used to serve developers in the reinforcement learning realm. For longer term plans, to be honest, with the current speed of AI, I don't have a very firm answer. Except we're going to integrate what we build with Dojo with maybe even more agent frameworks as well, because we expect an increasing amount of developers coming from agents themselves instead of human developers, and for them having a decentralized, transparent platform where they can gather feedback data for their software or for their interactions with the real world. I think there'll be massive demand in it. So that's what we're thinking. And also regarding Bittensor, we think a DeFi ecosystem is going to grow a lot with layer zero integration and with more, I would say, institutional crypto solutions supporting Bittensor. So we are going to launch additional features and integrations, basically to make it easier for more existing and future crypto participants to participate in Bittensor DeFi.
How can teams or companies use Dojo currently? What are some examples of this?
So currently, we haven't officially opened up Dojo to other teams to use yet, but they will be coming soon after we pull off the upgrade of the human feedback loop being integrated into Dojo. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow developers, either Web 2 or Web 3, that have needs regarding polishing their data and gathering human preference data for our HF across different modalities to come to us and just share the data where they need human preference on. For example, whether the AI has been correctly identifying the football players, or which one of the generated image of video done by the AI model is of higher quality for them to again improve the quality, and then our the thousands of human contributors on Dojo are going to very efficiently within a few hours to come up with the human preference data. So we believe there's very strong demand for what we're doing. From our participation in the Endgame Summit with other potential subnets, as well as in the recent Singapore, I think ICL Summit, where we spoke with Web2 AI developers.
So Dojo is essentially allowing the LLMs, the AIs, to form opinions based off the human opinion.
Basically gather our HF data to learn from the human preference data, because for after pre-training of models, after models basically read a lot of raw data when they learn, then they learn from a human preference, which is very effective because ultimately the users of these AI outputs are humans, and you want them to directly learn from customers. So that's why That's what many of the leading AI developers are doing. For example, one of the moats of the big tech developers like OpenAI or Google is that they are able to gather a lot of human preference data because they can afford to hire or they can just make users do it. For example, now on ChatGPT, a lot of times when you tell them which model is doing a better job, between two outputs, which one do you like more? You're basically providing our objective data. So with Dojo, we're basically opening this up to smaller developers that want to get a very wide range of data.
So that's where the reinforcement learning aspect comes in for Dojo. It's
Exactly.
the ChatGPT example of which answer is better, A or B.
Yeah.
That's the human feedback loop you're referring to. And it's like, what would you rate this
Exactly.
answer on a scale of 1 to 10? Or what did you like about this answer?
Yeah.
What did you dislike?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. With the human feedback loop that we're implementing soon, basically, after we ask once, which one do you like more? What's the reason? Then we can generate a new version of a new version of the output based on previous feedback and let human users to do it again. So this allows us to give more and more precise data for our HF. And that's why the human feedback loop that we're working on is very, let's say, pretty powerful.
And because this is one of the moats of big tech and ChatGPT, for example, is they have this massive user base that will answer those questions. They have a massive data
Exactly.
set. And then you're basically pooling that data set across infinite people, essentially, to democratize access to it.
I would say it's not really infinite people, but it's like thousands of people, and it just allows smaller AI developers to have a chance to gather these data. Because not every developer they have the resources to pull this off, and we have a decentralized and pretty credible platform where people can just see from the mechanisms of the platform how this works. So it's not really a black box for people, so they can trust the data that we collect.
How applicable is this type of data for different models? Like, does it scale across different models?
Yeah, it scales across different modalities. Like right now on the text modality, I think there's more than enough data for models to train and learn from. But if you look at like image generation, video generation, or in the future for the models where robots use to learn about the real world, there isn't sufficient data yet. Like data is like the fossil fuel for AI, and we need to find a way to get more of this data across different modalities. So that's where I think a lot of the usage for Dojo would come from. It will be beyond the text modality.
And then for layer 0, I think that was announced last week, a few days ago, very recent. How does layer 0 affect Bittensor as a whole, Backprop? What capabilities are now unlocked because of the layer 0 integration? And what does it even mean to be integrated with layer 0 like this?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges to grow Bittensor, even Bittensor DeFi, was the lack of a native uh, fiat-pegged stablecoin and native crypto assets from other chains, because ultimately in the current crypto on-chain ecosystem, the asset with the most liquidity is Ethereum, and you can't have access to trustworthy bridged ETH. The thing with Layer 0, which is one of the leading cross-chain communication providers, is basically they can be well trusted wrapped assets or layer 0 native assets from other chains provided by Tensor for people to provide liquidity, for people to borrow or to use as collateral in the ecosystem, so you can grow the TVL and the usability of the ecosystem a lot. So for example, instead of people buying and selling TAO on centralized exchanges, once there's enough liquidity of Bittensor's own EVM, then it becomes an ecosystem where you can just do more of these trading natively on chain, on the Bittensor chain. So there's less dependency on other platforms or chains.
And does that keep the liquidity inside the Bittensor ecosystem? Because that has been a big concern of a lot of participants, that it will essentially partition liquidity.
Yeah, I think the people's concern is more like if people can trade detail with other assets, then it becomes harder. It becomes harder for Bittensor to to position itself as the ultimate asset capturing everything. Um, I think it's not really an issue, to be honest, because I think what you're describing just now is the idea that wrapped alpha tokens will become a very dominant way of trading. But I think it's unlikely, just because there will be a lot of fragmentation between different teams that provide wrapped alpha as well. Is this wrapped alpha dedicated to this part of data or that part of data? I think there would just be a lot of fragmentation initially. So it will take some time before it's even a concern. And I think because if there are changes in wrapped alpha, ultimately people would arbitrage it in the main Bittensor chain as well. So it's not like if wrapped alpha price goes up, it doesn't lead to high demand for tau, because if the expected alpha price goes up, then people are going to buy tau to bridge in, like go into Bittensor and use a tau to buy that wrapped alpha to do the arbitrage. So yeah, I think that's not a concern basically.
How will these things, if at all, be tradable within Backprop? Will Backprop support these wrap tokens, or will Backprop have its own wrap token? How would that look?
We're still thinking what makes the most sense for the ecosystem, because the last thing we want to see is just it being massively fragmented, and then it's just a waste of liquidity. So we are going to see how it goes first and see what's the most robust and reasonable solution.
Yeah, that's
But we'll be there. Yeah, I know it's not a very conclusive answer, but
yeah.
I think there is no need for us to rush at the moment. Like dTAO liquidity is going to grow quite a bit. Market cap is going to grow quite a bit. In the coming year or so, and I don't think there are massive benefits to rushing here.
Yeah, absolutely. You're here for the long game, and with the speed of how things change and the landscape change and changes in Bittensor, it's hard to plan for the long term until things become more solidified. Well, CK, it's been great having you on. I'm going to ask one more question here before we sign off.
Sure.
And that is, what advice would you offer to teams or individuals entering the decentralized AI and DeFi space today, considering the current landscape?
I think, first of all, always optimize for doing the most interesting or novel stuff, instead of just trying to wrap what other people are doing. Because if you're doing novel stuff, then it's more likely you create your own thing instead of just trying to fork what others are doing. Because if you just want to copy what others are doing, then it's very likely that you're not the only person thinking of it. And with the current pace of AI, a lot of the, for example, easy GPT wrapper ideas, they would be obsolete very quickly. And then second, if you're in DAI, I think just try your best to communicate more. I'm also trying to ramp up my communication with the community as well. But I think in in the decentralized world, the most valuable thing is the community. Like the reason why I'm very confident no one can fork away Bittensor is not just because of tech, but it's also because you have this high caliber of talents that are here because they believe in the leadership of Const and Allah, and that's why we're at where we are. So yeah, I think optimize for the community.
TK, always a pleasure when we talk. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheers.